Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the UC Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here. And coming up on today's episode, the Denver Post's Parker Gabriel joins the show. He'll give insight and analysis surrounding the team as we reflect on Sunday's loss versus the Chiefs and look ahead to another matchup at home versus the Cardinals this Sunday. All that and more coming up. Here at the UC Health Training Center, there was no practice or media press conferences today as the players had the day off. So for today's episode of Broncos Now, Denver Post's Parker Gabriel joins the show to give his thoughts surrounding the team. Parker, so appreciate you joining me today. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, Sydney. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. How's it going?
I'm doing great. So a little snow outside finally feels like winter around here. So got nothing to complain about.
Well, Parker, it's hard to believe it's already week 15 of the season here. Just 4 more games left in the regular season. But I know it's kind of hard to believe the Broncos, are just sitting at 3-10. I don't think anyone really expected that at this point in the season.
No, I mean, not at all. And I think even if you were taking into account all of the newness, right? First year head coach, a quarterback who's here for the first year, even though it's his 10th or 11th in the NFL. I don't think anybody really saw this coming. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons for it. And it's been, I think, in particular, even though you sort of knew the flaws of the team, at least to some degree, like by the time we went to London at the end of October, the 5-game losing streak coming out of the bye has been sort of particularly tough, I think. I mean, you traded Bradley Chubb at the trade deadline, but you came out of that bye week thinking they had sort of a manageable stretch of the schedule, and it just hasn't gone their way at all this season, and in particular over the last 5 games.
For sure. Well, before we look ahead to week 15, I want to look back at the Broncos' performance versus the Chiefs this past Sunday. First and foremost, Russell Wilson, he is in concussion protocol. Coach Hackett said Monday that Russell's doing great. He looked great, but obviously number one priority is his safety. So what do you think in that regard? What do you think might happen this week if Russell is cleared or maybe if he's not cleared?
Yeah, there's a pretty strict set of basically progression that you have to go through in order to get out of the protocol to clear it. So you start with pretty light workout activity. You can be in the team meetings. And if you can handle that without having your symptoms aggravate, then you sort of move on to more strenuous. You can like ride an exercise bike, and then it's sort of football conditioning, and then non-contact work, and then finally full practice clearance, and only then can you play. So it's a tight timeline. We've seen some guys like DJ Jones earlier in the year was able to go all the way through the protocol in 1 week, and he didn't miss a game. There's another layer to the decision-making process with Russell Wilson now, just because Denver's eliminated from playoff contention. You have to imagine that they'll be smart with him. And at the same time, if he clears through the protocol, then it's really up to the coaching staff and Russell of whether he plays on Sunday and then down the stretch of the season.
Yeah. Well, prior to Russell suffering that concussion in the fourth quarter on Sunday, this offense looked arguably the best they'd looked all season. I know, Russell threw for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jeudy stepped up big. They made it a game after being down 27-0 in the second quarter. Parker, what do you think was working so well for this offense on Sunday?
Yeah, well, part of it is just like you said. They got Jeudy involved, and one of the things about Jerry is as the season's gone along, he and Russell have really, the chemistry there has really progressed. Early in the season, he was catching less than half the passes that were thrown his way. That can be a lot of different things, not being on the same page as a quarterback, a drop here and there, a throwaway in his direction, whatever it is. But he's caught everything that's gone his direction. Basically since the bye, he's missed some time with the ankle injury, but that was part of it. And then I think it's a sort of fine balance, right? Nathaniel Hackett talked about it on Monday. The element of Russell using his legs can really open things up. There's a couple situations where he got the 2-man, look from the defense. Nobody accounted for him. He took off and ran. He called his own number on the 3rd and 1 on a zone read, and he got 11 yards. Like, that's the kind of thing that you can keep the sticks moving. You can make a big play here and there. And then you're also putting him in harm's way more often. And then of course, he has a concussion at the end of the game. So Those are elements that, you'd like to see them continue to use, and that I'm sure they will continue to use on through the season. But they've struggled to put a healthy team on the field, and that's the case obviously again this week with Russell going through the protocol, Kendall Hinton getting hurt last week, Sutton's out, Mike Boone's out, just sort of the list goes on and on.
Yeah, we heard Coach Hackett talk on Monday a lot about just Jerry Jeudy's ability to come in and, play the position that Cortland was playing in addition to, his role in the slot. It seemed like Jerry really thrived in that situation. So obviously we don't really know Cortland's status. Coach Hackett said he's going to be day by day. How do you kind of hope to see this staff use Jerry like that moving forward?
Yeah, well, the metrics say that he's been dynamite against man coverage this year, and so that they know that obviously, and they have known that. And as he gets healthy, he only played the 20 snaps against Baltimore, and then he was up to 60 this last week against Kansas City. So him just being on the field gives him that element. It'll be interesting to see how much they do move him around depending on who else he's out there with, because it's possible Cortland Sutton's back, maybe not. Kendall Hinton's now dealing with a hamstring injury too. So it could be Jerry and a bunch of young guys out there. One of the things that's interesting is, it's sort of like one guy has sort of had a big day, each week or most weeks. So yeah, it's been Cortland, or it's been Greg Dulcich, or it's been Jerry. And so one of the things that will be interesting is, like Kansas City started doubling Jerry Jeudy, bracketing him, giving him a lot of attention. If Arizona does the same thing, then it's probably on somebody else to make plays. And then the question is like, who is that somebody else?
Right. I know. And it's been a tough season with all the injuries, like you mentioned, but want to look at this defense for a little bit. One guy I really want to highlight is just Josey Jewell. First off, he's just had such an incredible season. And, Sunday he got not only his first career interception, but ended the game with 2 interceptions. I felt like his first interception in the second quarter really changed the rhythm of the game, the pace of the game. But it kind of seems like Josey's not getting enough credit this season because he's been having a heck of a year.
Yeah, I just wrote for the Denver Post actually right before we jumped on here that I think he should get Pro Bowl consideration.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you look at it, part of the reason why his numbers may not jump off the page if you're looking, if you just pull up like leading tacklers in the NFL. I mean, he's missed 4 games. He had missed the 2 games with a calf strain, and then he sprained his knee and he missed 2 more games. But if you go on a per game basis, I mean, it's not like he's played in 4, right? He's played 9 of the 13 games. He's on the field virtually every snap when he's healthy. And, he's over 10 tackles a game, 10.6. He's got 96 tackles in 9 games. That's his per game tackle rate's 3rd in the NFL. He's got 7 tackles for loss. Now he's got 2 interceptions, both off of Patrick Mahomes. He's just been a guy who, Denver's had one of the better defenses in the NFL this year. And he's the guy that's in the middle of all of it. He calls the defense. He wears the green dot. He's in control. And he's every game literally that he's played this year. He's been a difference maker for Denver.
Definitely. Well, looking at the defense as a whole, they allowed 34 points on Sunday, the most that they've allowed all season. But, they knew it was going to be a tough test going up against the league's best scoring offense in the Chiefs. Parker, for you, how would you grade kind of just their overall performance on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that they played pretty well, especially as the game went along, and 7 of those were on the pick six. And so you're talking about 27 that the defense allowed, and 20 of those came on the first 4 drives of the game. And so, they gave up 20 points in the first 4 drives and then 7 on Kansas City's last 7, I think. Obviously, like if you're nitpicking, Patrick Mahomes did engineer the 1 touchdown drive in the second half, and they were able to run the last 4 minutes and 25 seconds or something like that off the clock. But overall, I mean, if you hold Kansas City to 27 and you turn them over 3 times, you intercept Patrick Mahomes 3 times, you should be right in that game. And even though it sort of like took a unique route to get there, they were right in the game. Denver's offense got the ball 4 times in the second half with a chance to take the lead. 2 with Russell Wilson still in the game, and then 2 with Brett Rippon still in the game. Weren't able to get it done, obviously. But, I think it's a lot of yards and it looks like a lot of points. And then when you grade it on the scale, it's still an effort, I think, that you can build on if you're the Broncos defense.
Yeah, there were certainly more positives to take out of this game than there has been in recent weeks. But, ultimately the Broncos, they didn't get the win. Another 1-score loss. Parker, why do you think maybe that this team hasn't been able to really finish these games? And, what are your hopes in regards to that, this weekend as, they host the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think it's been a combination of things. I mean, some weeks, they've had to lead early in the game. I think they've led by 10 points 4 or 5 different times. And so the one score losses have sort of come in different shapes and sizes, so to speak. For the most part, there's been a couple times where the defense there's a situation where you really, they need to get off the field. Like if you're one of the best defenses in the NFL, you can't let a backup quarterback in Baltimore go 91 yards and score at the end of the game. But for the most part this year, it's just been about offensive inconsistency. And I think especially when you're playing with the lead, their inability to, run the ball consistently the hallmark of good offense in a lot of ways, besides just, scoring a lot of points, is when you can run the ball in situations where the other team knows you're going to run the ball. When you go out there and you say, we're going to put this game away, even though they know that we're trying to put the game away. I mean, that's when you've really got something. And that's just been, Denver hasn't got to that point this year. And that's definitely part of the reason why, they've come up short in some games that they've led. And then overall, when you're scoring 15 points a game, you're just operating with a really thin margin for error.
For sure. Well, a lot to build upon this week. Hopefully they get the win this Sunday versus the Cardinals at home. Parker, really appreciate your insight and for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now, Broncos Country. Thanks so much for tuning in. The team will be back at practice tomorrow, so make sure to meet me right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for another episode. I will see you all then.